and I'm going to hit the start the webinar. Welcome everyone. This is Roxanne Truon with the Michigan State University Science Festival, and I'm happy to welcome you to another live talk, this time with the John Ball Park Zoo, and we're happy that they could join us today. And before we get started, just a little housekeeping. If you have questions throughout the presentation today, you can type them in on the Q&A if you're listening on the Zoom webinar. And if you're listening on Facebook Live, you can type your questions into the comments section. So without any more delay, I want to welcome Rhiannon Mulligan from the John Ball Park Zoo. She's the education manager there, and she's going to show us some live animals today. So I'm really excited about that. Go ahead.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I am going to jump right in because I have 3 animal friends to share with you today. I'm excited that it's today as we celebrate Party for the Planet over here at the zoo, which is our big Earth Day event. So I thought I would start off with one of our native animals here. Give me just a moment to get him out here for us. And this is Simon, and hang on just a minute. We'll see if we can get Simon to settle down here. So Simon is a red-headed duck. So a lot of times we think mallards are one of the few ducks, but there are lots of species of ducks that we have here in Michigan, and the red-headed duck is one of them. So they are technically classified as a diving duck, which would mean they're going to dive down into the water for their food. But the food that this guy's going after are actually plant material. So he's not really going after the fish. He's going after plants, some insects, things like that. So you can see with his rounded beak that he has there, he does really well at getting plant material and those insects out of the water. So birds in general, they don't have teeth. Teeth actually are really heavy and would make it really hard for them to fly. So he's got a little serrated kind of edge to his beak. If he were to open his mouth here, you would see that serrated edge that kind of helps him hang on to his food while he's getting it out of the water. So ducks are sexually dimorphic, which means they're going to be different colors. The boys are going to be really flashy and pretty, and the girls are going to blend in really well with camouflage to make sure that they can hide while they're sitting on their nests. So you can see Simon here has this nice pretty red color on his head, and then the body that he has here is more of like a grayish color. So you can see the different colorations on his wings and his chest there. So ducks and birds have 3 different kinds of feathers that cover their body. So he has his shape or contour feathers. Those are the ones that make up his head and his back here. And then they have their flight feathers. So give me just a minute here. We'll get him to see if you can see his flight feathers. So his flight feathers are obviously the ones that help him fly through the air. So he's got his wings and then his tail feathers here in the back. You can see he's a very active duck. He would love to just get down and run around a little. And then he has downy feathers. So the downy feathers are going to be underneath all of these other feathers. So the really soft, fuzzy ones that help to keep him nice and warm. And then lastly, he's got some awesome feet. So just like all ducks, he's got those webbed feet for helping him paddle through the water, and the longer nails to help him grip onto things if he's sitting on any branches and things like that. So feel free as we go through here to ask any questions that you might have about the animals. I'll kind of keep an eye out and see if you've got any to ask. So
I
any,
do have one that actually I've seen circulating on Facebook myself, and that's if you're out in the wild and you see ducks and you always like to want to feed them. I've heard it's really a bad idea to feed them bread in the wild, that you should take maybe some frozen peas or something that would be better for them.
yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, the bread is not something that they would normally have in their diet. And it actually can cause them to get really sick. And further, if they don't eat it, it can actually make the water really, it's not great for the water source that they're in. So it can cause a lot of algae growth. So yeah, any kind of lettuce, frozen vegetables like the peas are great. They can thaw and eat those. That's a really good snack for them. Yeah, different lettuces. So obviously, like a kale or like a romaine that's got some more nutrients in it would be really good too to kind of shred up for them and take out. So great thought. Yeah, I know that ducks, especially on that MSU campus, if you're there, used to be kind of a popular activity. So something good to know in terms of keeping our water clean and keeping our animals healthy. So, all right, I've got some more animal friends. So I'm going to put the Simon away here if there aren't any other questions, or I can answer some more questions too as we go.
Tyson has a question. He wants to know, how deep can he dive?
Ooh, he can dive pretty deep. I'm not sure if there's really a limit. It's probably likely that he's not going to be in too deep of a water just because he likes all that plant material. So he's more likely to kind of hang out in the lakes and ponds that are a little bit more shallow and have lots of growth going on that he can still see from the surface.
And then Tyson also wants to know, does he migrate or does he winter here in Michigan?
Oh yeah, great question. So he is going to migrate. So redheaded ducks, most of them will actually winter over in Florida or in Mexico, but they may go even further south than that, just depending on where they're coming from and how far they have to travel. But excellent question. Give me just a moment to clean up my table here from Simon. He got really excited and decided to make a bit of a mess, but that's what ducks do. We wouldn't expect anything less. So speaking of migrating, we are going to kind of, as we travel the world here with our animal friends, go to an animal that is found down in South America. So this is our Chaco tortoise, and this is Taco, the Chaco tortoise. So this is, if you notice, I said tortoise. So the difference between tortoises and turtles, does anybody know? We'll see if we've got any turtle or tortoise experts out there first.
Yeah, feel free to write it in the comments or Q&A if you want to answer.
So regardless of whether he's a turtle or a tortoise and what the difference might be, they have this great shell that helps protect them. So it's a really tough shell. It's actually made of bone, but covered in scales. So he is a reptile. And the scales continue to grow. So you can see on his back here, you can actually, if I get really close, you can kind of see the ridges on each of those little scales on his back there. Those are growth rings, similar to what you might find on a tree. So if you were to cut a tree and you count the growth rings of the tree, these are the growth rings of the tortoise. Now, they're not very accurate. So you can sit and count, and it might take you quite a while on Taco here, but it'll give you a rough estimate of their age. Just like trees can have years where they grow really, really fast and maybe get double rings, turtles can have really great years where they can grow pretty quickly, or there might be years where it's really tough for them to maybe find food out in the wild, and maybe they don't grow as much with their shell there. But he is continuously shedding, so he'll continue to grow little by little every year. Now that he's older, he has slowed down in his growth quite a bit. So this is pretty much about as big as he'll get. But again, he'll just continue to kind of peel off that outer layer and have sort of a fresh new scale underneath. But this is attached to him, so he can't just slide out of his shell and take a break from hauling that around when he wants to. So his backbone runs right down the middle of the shell, and that's what kind of keeps him attached. And then his bottom, which is called the carapace, is also really tough, and this is what protects him. So when he comes across a predator or somebody that he's worried about, he's going to pull his head in, and then he's going to fold these front legs up around his head, and same with his back legs. So you can see the different scales and skin covering that he has on his body here. The front scales that are going to cover him between that top shell and the bottom carapace are really tough. So that's what's going to help protect him against anybody that's going after him. Now, the other really nice thing about being a turtle is if you can make it to maybe the age of 3 or 4, you really don't have to worry about too many predators. This shell is an amazing adaptation and defense against predators. So it's too hard for most animals to break through. And so if he can hide and keep his head safe and keep his limbs safe, then there's a pretty good chance that he can live a really long time. So Taco here is going on 27 years old this year. And there's a good chance that he can live another 50 years. So if any of you are aspiring zoologists or educators out there and want to come work at the zoo, there's a really good chance that Taco will be hanging out here, even when you come to visit the zoo or to even work here in the future. So any guesses as to do we get any answers on the tortoise versus turtle?
Tyson says feet. Their feet are different.
Oh, their feet are a little bit different. Yeah. So a turtle is going to have more flipper-like legs and feet to help them kind of paddle through the water. So tortoises pretty much spend all of their time on land. So this is actually a desert tortoise. Found down in South America. So they're going to spend most of their time kind of cruising around, burying themselves down into the sand to keep themselves cool during the day, and also to keep themselves warm in the evening when they're not walking around searching for food. Now, if he lives in the desert, there's a lot of times we think, what's he going to eat? Here are native turtles and box turtles here in Michigan like to eat lots of fruit and vegetables. The Chaco tortoise is going to eat cactus. So they've got a really sharp beak, similar to a bird beak, and they can just chomp right through the spines on the cactus to get to the flesh of the plant. And that's also going to be where they get most of their water. So he doesn't necessarily have to go find a pond or a pool of water to drink from. He's going to get that just from the food that he eats. Now here at the zoo, he gets really nice, what we call a herptile salad. So our lizards and turtles all get a nice yummy salad. So he gets a variety of greens. He might get dandelion leaves. He might get lettuce. He'll get shredded carrots, and then he also gets some fruit in there as well, like apples and oranges. And then he'll occasionally get some meat. So they will eat dead things if they come across it. So they're pretty opportunistic eaters as well. So they can get really creative in terms of what they like to eat out there in the wild. So I know that the Chaco tortoise isn't necessarily a native here, but as we talk about and celebrate Earth Day this month, and things start to warm up, I know we've got some bright sunshine over here in Grand Rapids today. It's the time of year where turtles are going to start coming out of hibernation. So they're waking up as the temperatures warm up, and they're heading out to find their nesting sites to lay their eggs later this summer. and they're searching for their food. So one of the best ways that we can interact and help our native turtles is to actually enjoy them where they are. So if you find a turtle, definitely enjoy it, check it out. They're really fun creatures to look at and watch for a while. But we just ask that you leave them where you find them because they have really small home ranges. So the space in which they know where they're going to hibernate for the winter, where they're going to go to find food. We have a couple of resident wild box turtles here at the zoo, and we've actually been tracking them with radio telemetry over the last couple of years to discover just exactly how they're using the park space here at the zoo and in the surrounding area. And it's been pretty interesting because we can go out on the same date year after year, and actually more than a couple of times over the year have found these box turtles in the exact same spot they were last year on, say, May 15th and October 10th. So it's pretty crazy. So they definitely have their spots where they like to hibernate and spend the winter, as well as where they track all of those local foods that are coming up, whether it's mushrooms and they know their mushroom patch, or whether they know where they like to go to lay their eggs. So just some really fun ways to interact with your wildlife and help take care of them where they are.
And then we had a question from Matthew. He wants to know if native turtles in Michigan eat crayfish.
Ooh, some of them will. So we always think, oh, they're really slow, but spotted turtles especially really like those clear waters where you might find some crayfish, and they can swim up to 35 miles an hour. So I would imagine that if they can go fast enough, they might actually catch those crayfish and eat them. So good question. And then turtles will sometimes too change their diet. So we do have some, like the Blandings turtle here in Michigan, will eat more plant material when they're younger, and then they'll actually get more carnivorous as they get older. So it might be the older ones that are going after those crayfish. So great question. All right, so I've got one more animal friend to join us. So let me put Taco the Chaco away here really quick. And our last one is also in the reptile family. Just a moment to get the carrier open here. This is sort of our senior citizen here. So this critter normally in the wild lives only about 10 years, but this particular lizard that I have is going to turn 28 this year. So they can live a rather long time in managed care here at the zoo. So this is Plop. He is our New Caledonia giant gecko. So I mentioned that we were traveling the world. While we do have lots of reptiles like turtles and snakes here in Michigan, we don't have many geckos. I don't know that we have any geckos here in Michigan. But this one is the biggest gecko you will find. They can get up to 14 inches long, so they can get really big. Plop here is just kind of a wrinkly old man for a lizard. So he's not, I don't know that he's 14 inches long. They can lose their tails. Plop has not lost his tail. This is just the way that it looks. So you can tell where there's a kind of a big difference between his body and his tail there. So if he were to get stressed and we're trying to run away from a predator, he could actually drop that tail and then regenerate a new tail. And the idea there is that the tail will drop off and the predator thinks, ooh, I caught my dinner, or they get distracted by the movement of that tail, and then it gives the lizard an opportunity to run away and hide. So now these geckos don't have a ton of natural predators in their area. They are found on a specific island area in the Pacific Ocean, and are actually also called sometimes the devil in the trees, because he looks kind of unassuming, but he is actually a nocturnal lizard and will come out at night and actually makes growling sounds up in the trees. So if you can imagine being on this lush tropical island and you're walking through the woods at night and all of a sudden you hear these growling sounds, it'd probably startle you pretty well. But it's pretty funny to think that it would just be this wrinkly little lizard hanging out in the trees waiting for some insects. So you can see his eyes look a little bit different. So I mentioned that he is pretty old for his age. He actually has cataracts. So he is, it's difficult for him to see, but he's done really well here at the zoo in terms of being able to find his food that he eats. So he eats sort of a nectar-based food as well as insects. And again, that herpetile salad that I mentioned that all of our lizards get. So like all geckos, he climbs really well. So he's choosing not to move around too much right now, but if you can see, let me see if I can get a really good close-up of his foot. You can see he's got claws on the ends of his toes there that help him grip on. Give me just a minute if I can peel up one of his feet here, because geckos have amazing feet that we've actually learned a lot from in terms of technology and sticking. So on the bottoms of his feet, he has, it's gonna focus. He's got tiny little hairs that help him grip onto things. I'm trying to get it. Not focusing very well. But that's what helps him climb. So when he is in his big house back downstairs here, he'll climb up the walls, he'll climb across the ceiling, and it doesn't bother him at all. So he's got amazing grip strength for his body. It is a pretty impressive critter. So I was hoping that maybe he would open up his mouth here and show you his big sticky lizard tongue. So he eats insects. He doesn't have an overly long tongue, but he does actually occasionally decide to clean his eyeballs with it. So he is capable of getting it all the way up to his eyeball to clean that. But that's how he captures his food. So do we have any questions about the gecko?
We don't have questions, but we have just some comments that people are loving seeing these cool little dudes. That everything has been very interesting and delightful.
Great.
So
yeah.
How did you get interested in doing what you do at the zoo?
Oh, so I actually got interested. I grew up not necessarily going to the zoo a lot, but I actually spent a ton of time at my local nature center. So learning all I could about all kinds of animals, fell in love and went to Michigan State for a zoology degree, but quickly learned that I love sharing information and teaching kids and families all about the really cool animals that we have here. So ended up in more of the education realm, which I like to tell people is kind of a nice mix. So I get to spend time with the animals. I don't always smell like the animals, although the duck did. Simon got me really good today, so I will have to do some laundry tonight.
And then we did have one comment from Cecilia, who's age 9. She said, I really like the gecko's smile. It does look like he's smiling.
He does look like he's smiling, doesn't he? He looks very content. So.
Now, did you mention, I know with the ducks you mentioned they don't have teeth. How about geckos? Do they have teeth?
He doesn't. Nope. So if he were to open up his mouth, again, very similar to the duck, he'd have more of like, I guess they might be considered tiny little teeth, but he doesn't have really sharp teeth. So he's really more just going to use sort of the bony structure of his mouth to crunch up those insects that he'll eat. So you definitely don't necessarily need to worry about the bite of this lizard.
And then for those listening, the John Ballpark Zoo is in Grand Rapids. And are you open now?
We are. So we open for the season March 27th, and we'll be open through November. We encourage you to come out. We are doing timed ticketing, so we're watching our capacity carefully at the zoo to make sure that we are a safe place to visit. So we encourage you to check out the timed ticketing and reserve your spot to come over to the zoo.
And I hear, is there a special event happening? You were talking about Party for the Earth or something like that.
Yep. So today we've got Party for the Planet happening. We do have a new traveling exhibit here this year called Brick Live Supersized. So if you're into Lego animals, we've got huge supersized animals. So taking the really small animals and blowing them up really big. So we have a giant tarantula. We've got a really cool octopus. There's a scorpion. So some of the maybe lesser loved animals, but really colorful and bright to get people interested in learning the really cool things that they have to offer us.
Oh, awesome. And then Cecilia just wanted to let you know that her mom used to work there when she was in high school.
Oh, yeah. If you're in the Grand Rapids area and you're interested, we're still hiring. So lots of fun summer jobs here at the zoo.
Awesome. Well, it looks like, unless we have any last minute questions. Oh, wait, I have one. Here we go. Humans have cataract surgery. Would it be possible to remove those on the gecko?
So it would, and our veterinarian has definitely looked into it, but they've decided that due to Plop's age, and the fact that he still does seem to be maneuvering his habitat really well and doesn't have an issue finding his food, that it's probably better and safer for him to not have to go through the surgery than it would be to go through the surgery. So, but it's definitely something that we monitor continuously to make sure that he's still maneuvering and doing okay.
Awesome.
A great question.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, our time is up, but I really enjoyed seeing these animals and hope everyone gets a chance to get out to Grand Rapids and visit John Ballpark Zoo. I know they have a lot of interesting animals out there. Do you have a favorite animal at the zoo?
Ooh, so my favorite animal right now is actually our Eastern Mountain Bongo. Most people have never heard of them. They're a really pretty antelope. They look similar to a zebra, but they've got more of a brown and cream striped look to them. And they've got really cool horns that kind of stick out of the back of their head. But it's actually one of the most critically endangered animals that we have here at the zoo. And we have a really great breeding program that we work with in partnership with other zoos, and have actually been fortunate enough to send one of our bongos over to Africa for a reintroduction program into the national parks that they have.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. And that's, I think, one of the important things about zoos is the conservation efforts that all of you do and try and get animals back out in their habitats in nature. So that's really fantastic.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we'll let you go and let the little gecko go back to his little house. Thank you again for taking part in the Michigan State University Science Festival. We really appreciate the partnership. And for those still listening, we still have talks going on today till 5 o'clock. And then we have other events scheduled all the way out through April 30th. So check out sciencefestival.msu.edu for the complete schedule. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.